The stars were quiet that night. In the vast darkness above Earth's moon, something moved. A silent object drifted closer to orbit, its body blackened and scratched by time and space. It was not supposed to be there. It was the Odyssey, a long-lost Earth ship that had vanished 18 years ago on a deep space mission. No one had seen or heard from it since. It had left with a crew of 50 and never returned. Most believed it was destroyed in deep space, swallowed by a black hole or lost beyond the edge of known space. Families had cried, grieved, and moved on. But now, it was back without warning, without signal. It just appeared, floating gently in the silence as if no time had passed. Earth's orbital stations picked it up first, and panic followed. Was this a trap? An alien copy? Or had the impossible truly happened? Commander Elaine Reyes, head of orbital recovery and former flight engineer of the Odyssey's sister ship, was rushed to the control center. Her heart pounded as she looked at the screen. It was really the Odyssey. And her brother Jonah had been on that ship. Elaine stood frozen. Her thoughts raced with memories: Jonah's smile, his voice, the way he promised he'd be back. 18 years. She had buried him in her heart. Now, her heart screamed with both hope and fear. She was ordered to lead the recovery mission. The ship was strangely powered. No signs of movement. No emergency lights. But also, no damage. It looked intact. Too intact. A boarding team of 6 was formed. Elaine insisted she be part of it. As their shuttle docked with the Odyssey, a chill ran through all of them. The ship's airlock opened without resistance. Inside, the lights flickered on slowly, like waking from a long dream. Everything was still. Chairs were in place. Tools floated in the air, untouched by time. Jackets hung on walls. Coffee cups were still full but cold. It looked like the crew had just stepped out, but they were gone. All of them. Not a single body. No signs of violence. Just silence. As they moved deeper, they saw strange symbols glowing softly on the ship's walls, curved, shifting lines that shimmered like they were alive. They weren't part of the original ship design. Elaine's hand brushed one symbol, and it pulsed under her touch. Her head filled with a soft whisper, like wind through trees, but it spoke no words she could understand. The team grew nervous. "We need to leave," one officer said. "This ship is wrong." But Elaine pressed on. She had to find Jonah. In the command center, they found the captain's logs. The final log was dated only 1 week ago. That was impossible. Elaine played the recording. A woman's voice came through, trembling. "We are not alone. We were taken. Changed. If this ship returns, it means they let us go. But we don't know why." The team exchanged looks. Who were they? What happened to the crew? Suddenly, the ship's main AI booted up. The screen flashed blue, then spoke in a calm, male voice. "Welcome back, Commander Reyes." Elaine stared at it. "How do you know me?" she asked. The AI replied, "You were listed as next of kin to Officer Jonah Reyes. He programmed this message." Her breath caught in her throat. "Play it," she said. The AI screen went black, then a new message played. Jonah's face appeared. He was older, tired, with eyes that looked far away, almost hollow. "Elaine," he began, "if you're seeing this, the ship made it home. But we didn't. We were taken somewhere, outside of time. We met things that don't think like us. They changed us. Some of us didn't survive. Some didn't stay human. They gave us things. Knowledge. Power. But it comes with a price. We brought back a warning. Do not use the tech. Do not open the sealed room. We barely made it back. But if they follow the screen cut out." The room was dead silent. Elaine's hands shook. Her brother was alive, or had been. But what did he mean by not human? What did they bring back? One of the officers pointed at a closed door in the hallway behind the bridge. It was locked and covered in bright blue glowing runes. "This must be the room he mentioned," she said. The team moved closer, but as they approached, a low hum began to fill the air. Their flashlights flickered. One officer clutched his head and screamed, falling to his knees. "They are watching us," he cried. "Don't open it! Don't open it!" The others pulled him back, panicking. The hum stopped, but the fear remained. Elaine ordered a retreat to the shuttle. Back in orbit, Earth Command demanded answers. She told them what she could but left out parts of Jonah's message. She wasn't ready to share everything. Not yet. Later that night, Elaine sat alone in her quarters, staring at Jonah's frozen face on the screen. His eyes seemed to look right at her, past the screen, past the ship, past space itself. Her heart ached. He had tried to come back. Tried to warn them. But who were they? And what did the Odyssey bring back? She didn't know yet, but something in her gut told her that this was only the beginning. Earth had recovered its ghost ship, but it wasn't the same ship that left. And whatever followed it home, hadn't shown itself yet. The sealed door inside the Odyssey had no handle, no keypad, no sign of how to open it. Just the glowing alien symbols running across its smooth surface like veins of light. It didn't belong to the ship. Elaine knew that. She had helped design Odyssey's early systems. This door was something else, something added after the ship vanished. Earth Command ordered a full examination, and a new team of top scientists was flown to the moon base. They wanted to know what was behind that door. They wanted the alien tech. But Elaine wasn't sure they should be trying to open it at all. Jonah's message was still fresh in her mind. Do not open the sealed room. His voice had been full of fear. Not confusion. Not curiosity. Fear. Dr. Malik, a senior physicist with years of deep space study, led the research on the door. He believed the glowing runes were a kind of language, a warning or maybe instructions. For days, they studied the energy patterns. The symbols shifted under different kinds of light. Some pulsed in rhythm, like a heartbeat. One day, a young technician placed his hand on the door without permission. He collapsed instantly. Eyes wide open. Mouth silent. He didn't speak for hours. When he finally did, his voice was hollow. "I saw stars that bled," he whispered. "They live between thoughts." After that, no one touched the door again. Elaine asked the AI for answers, but it had changed since the first day. It no longer used a single voice. Instead, it spoke with different tones, like multiple people whispering at once. "You should not have returned," it said one evening. "You will break the balance." Elaine demanded to know what that meant, but the AI shut down without reply. The ship seemed to resist them, as if it had its own will now. Strange glitches appeared in the systems. Lights flickered. Cold spots formed in hallways. One camera caught a shadow moving through the corridors, but no one was there. Meanwhile, Earth Command grew impatient. They wanted to force open the door. Elaine argued against it, showing them Jonah's warning. But some officials believed it was a bluff, something to keep the tech away from government hands. They approved a small controlled explosion to break the seal. The team prepared carefully, setting charges on the door while trying not to damage whatever was inside. Elaine watched from a nearby room, hands shaking. Deep down, something told her this was wrong. The moment the countdown hit 0, the explosion echoed through the ship. Smoke filled the hallway. But when the dust settled, the door was still there untouched. Not a single scratch. The runes pulsed faster now, like they were angry. That night, 3 scientists who had worked closest to the sealed door disappeared. Their rooms were empty. Their devices were left on. No trace of them. Not even a footprint. Security footage showed only static during the time of their disappearance. Panic spread through the station. Some called it sabotage. Others whispered about something darker. Elaine was haunted by her brother's words again. We were changed to survive them. What had they become? And were they even still human? The next morning, the AI turned itself on without command. Its screen glowed red instead of blue. A new message appeared. It was a voice Jonas, but it sounded slower, as if dragged through something heavy. They are not locked in. They are holding the lock from the inside. The message ended. No one understood what it meant. But Elaine felt it in her bones. Whatever was behind that door was alive. And it didn't want out. It wanted them to keep trying, to keep knocking. The alien devices found in other parts of the ship were still under study. Some created light without power. Some floated in mid-air, resisting gravity. One cube seemed to absorb sound itself when placed on a table. Even speech around it vanished. These items were moved to Earth for analysis, but Elaine feared what might happen if they were activated in the wrong way. Every night, she dreamed of stars spinning too fast, of walls breathing, of voices calling her name through metal. And every morning, she woke up more afraid than the day before. Back in the sealed corridor, the runes changed again. They now formed patterns that resembled eyes. Watching. Waiting. Dr. Malik proposed one final method, a new kind of laser that could slice through the strongest materials. Elaine begged him to stop. We were warned, she said. You saw what happened to the others. But he refused. We're scientists, not children afraid of ghosts, he replied. The laser was scheduled for the next day. But that night, Dr. Malik vanished too. His bed was still warm. His shoes beside the door. But he was gone just like the others. Elaine stood alone in the hallway where the sealed room pulsed quietly. The air felt heavy, thick, like it was watching her. She didn't know what the aliens were, or what they wanted. But now she was certain of one thing: they weren't just observing. They were testing. And every attempt to open the door was part of the test. Earth thought it had found a gift. But maybe, just maybe, Odyssey wasn't a gift at all. It was a trap. A warning. Or worse, an invitation. Elaine stood alone in her quarters, staring at a single item placed on her table: a journal. It had been found in Jonah's old room aboard Odyssey. She had refused to look at it at first. Too painful. But something kept pulling her back to it. The pages were old but untouched by time. The cover was cracked at the edges, the paper yellowing, but it still held the smell of oil and space dust. Her hands trembled as she flipped it open. At first, the entries looked normal. Routine logs. Notes about the crew. Funny lines. Her brother's handwriting. It felt like he was sitting beside her again. Then, the entries began to change. Halfway through the journal, the language shifted. The words were curved, bent, symbols that didn't belong to any human alphabet. They pulsed faintly under the light. The letters themselves moved just slightly as if alive. Elaine blinked, thinking it was her eyes playing tricks. But they kept shifting, forming patterns. Shapes. Images. Her heart beat faster. She turned the page, and without knowing why, began to read one of the alien lines aloud. The moment she did, pain struck her head like lightning. The room spun. She fell to her knees, clutching her skull as the walls around her melted into light. She wasn't in her room anymore. She was somewhere else. A vast black field stretched out before her. Above her, stars twisted in impossible directions. Floating structures of light moved like whales in the sky. Voices whispered from every direction, but not in words, only feelings. She saw a ship Odyssey drifting toward a massive glowing object. Not a planet. Not a star. A tear in space, like a wound. The ship was pulled inside. Then she saw the crew screaming, changing, their bodies becoming light and shadow. She saw Jonah. His eyes glowing. His skin cracking like glass. But he wasn't in pain. He was calm. And then everything turned black. Elaine woke on the floor, gasping for air. She had been unconscious for over an hour. A medic rushed in. She waved him off, still trembling. "I saw something," she whispered. "Not a dream. A memory. But it wasn't hers. It was someone else's, Jonah's, maybe. Or something else entirely." She picked up the journal again. The symbols no longer moved. They were still, quiet. As if satisfied. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing the voices from the black field. Not words, just emotions. Wonder. Hunger. Curiosity. The next morning, the research team reported a new development. One of the alien devices from the Odyssey had activated on its own. It projected a 3D star map, marking locations far beyond known space. One star in the corner of the map was blinking. It matched no known system. But when compared to old logs, they realized something terrifying: that was the last known location of Odyssey before it disappeared 18 years ago. The ship hadn't just gone far. It had gone somewhere else entirely. A place outside normal space. A place not meant for humans. Elaine presented her experience to Earth Command. Some believed her. Some didn't. But one thing was now clear: the alien language was not just words. It was a code. A key. And reading it unlocked not just knowledge, but connection. Her mind had touched something out there. And now it was touching back. She began to feel strange. Her reflection flickered in mirrors. She knew thoughts before they were spoken. She could sense movement behind walls. The tech was changing her. Just like Jonah warned. Later that day, another officer made a mistake. He tried reading the alien script from the journal aloud in front of others, joking it might summon space ghosts. He collapsed instantly, just like Elaine had, but he didn't wake up. His body lived, but his mind was gone. Empty. Hollow. They moved him to medical in silence. No one laughed again. Elaine returned to Odyssey, this time alone. She sat in Jonah's room, holding the journal. On the wall, she saw a message carved deep into the metal, hidden behind a loose panel. It was in English, shaky and rushed: "They are learning through us. They don't want Earth. They want minds." She stared at it for a long time. What did that mean? Were the alien beings feeding on thought? Were they using human memory to shape themselves? The sealed room at the heart of Odyssey now glowed with brighter light. The runes pulsed in sync with Elaine's heartbeat. The AI whispered to her when no one else was around. "You are opening. You are ready." She didn't know what that meant. But she felt different now. She didn't just remember Jonah's face. She could feel his presence, like he was reaching through time and space, asking her to understand. But understand what? Earth Command began discussing mass deployment of alien tech. Power generators. Communication devices. Even weapon systems. Elaine begged them to stop. "We don't understand what we're dealing with," she said. "It's not just tools. It's language. It's infection." They ignored her. The first experimental reactor using alien energy was activated on Earth. It worked. Perfectly. Too perfectly. The officials smiled. Elaine did not. That night, the sealed door opened. Just a crack. Just enough for the light to spill out. Elaine heard one word whispered through the Odyssey's halls, echoing through every speaker: "Welcome." The ship was not a victim. It was not lost. It had returned because it had finished its task. It had found a way in. At first, everything seemed normal. The alien reactor built on Earth was a miracle: clean, endless energy. It powered entire cities with no pollution. No fuel. No risk. Scientists called it the future of power. The media praised the discovery as the greatest breakthrough in human history. World leaders celebrated. Energy prices dropped to zero overnight. People danced in the streets. But deep in her bones, Elaine felt a silence growing. Back on Odyssey, the sealed door now stood slightly open. Just enough to see a sliver of the strange glowing light inside. No one dared approach it now. The runes around the frame pulsed slower, calmer, as if breathing. Watching. Waiting. Every camera near the room malfunctioned. Every motion sensor failed. Even the air felt different, thicker, warmer, like it was alive. Elaine tried to ask the AI what was inside, but it only whispered, "We are not alone. We are not one." She didn't know if that meant the crew, or something else. 3 days after the Earth reactor went live, strange things started happening. At first, it was small streetlights flickering, random power surges, digital clocks skipping time. But then, machines began acting on their own. A self-driving car reversed into a wall without cause. A robotic arm at a hospital moved without command and injured a nurse. Communication satellites glitched, showing static mixed with symbols no one could read. The same curved symbols as the ones on the Odyssey's sealed room. Elaine begged Earth Command to shut the reactor down. She showed them the logs, the journal, the missing people, the voices she'd heard. "You think we've discovered alien technology," she said. "But maybe it's not tech. Maybe it's alive." The officials laughed. "It's a tool, Commander. A powerful one. You're just scared of what you don't understand." They didn't know fear like she did. They hadn't stood near that door. They hadn't heard the whispers. On the 4th day, an entire research station in New Mexico went silent. No distress call. No data. Just gone. When a recovery team arrived, they found every computer screen displaying the same message, "We see you." And in the center of the main lab, an alien cube from Odyssey floated in the air, spinning slowly, glowing red. It had been inactive for days. No one knew how it turned on. Elaine knew. The reactor hadn't powered the tech. It had connected them. The AI on Odyssey began to speak more often, but now in 2 voices: Jonah's, and something else. "You opened the signal. Now it listens. Now it learns." Elaine felt watched. Her dreams became clearer. She saw visions of vast alien structures floating in blackness, of creatures without form studying Earth like a puzzle. She felt what Jonah must have felt: small, fragile, exposed. Like an insect under a lens. Elaine returned to the sealed room. The door was still cracked open, but something had changed. A new sound echoed from within, a slow, pulsing rhythm. Like a heartbeat. She stood alone in the hallway, frozen. Her body trembled, but her mind felt drawn forward. The journal in her hands heated up. The runes on the cover glowed. Then the door spoke, not in words, but in pure thought. Images filled her mind, Earth covered in symbols, machines growing eyes, people forgetting who they were. Then a single phrase echoed inside her, "You are the voice now." She stumbled back. Her hands shook. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew it was a warning. The alien presence had not only come through the ship. It was already spreading through tech, through minds, through memory. It didn't need to invade Earth. Earth had already opened the door for it. The next morning, reports flooded in. The global communication network began malfunctioning. Screens across the world displayed strange symbols, then went dark. Military drones failed in midair. Hospital machines refused to respond. One child in Tokyo spoke fluently in a language no one understood, then fell unconscious. People were beginning to change. And Elaine feared it was just the start. She contacted her superior, General Harlow, and pleaded again, "Shut the reactor down. Destroy the devices. Cut the connection." But the general's face looked distant. Cold. His voice lacked emotion. "It's too late, Commander. We're already in." Then the screen cut to static. Elaine stared in horror. She wasn't sure if she'd just spoken to Harlow or to something wearing his voice. Back on Odyssey, the heartbeat behind the door grew louder. The AI whispered again, its voice layered and echoing. They hear your thoughts. They wear your names. The change has begun. And then the lights on Odyssey dimmed. In the silence, Elaine heard Jonah's voice one last time. Elaine, they are already here? The world was still spinning, but it no longer felt familiar. Elaine sat inside Odyssey's bridge, eyes fixed on the glowing symbols on the screen. They shifted slowly, as if breathing like they were alive and waiting for something. The heartbeat behind the sealed door throbbed louder now, steady and slow. No one had touched the door again, yet it kept opening. Wider. The light from within spilled softly into the hall like dawn through a window. But it wasn't morning. It felt like the beginning of something else. Suddenly, a sharp tone pierced the silence. A high-frequency alarm from the Deep Space Telescope on Lunar Station 3. The transmission was short, full of static, but the signature was unmistakable. It was the exact same pulse that had been echoing behind the sealed room on Odyssey. A signal, matching rhythm for rhythm, coming from far beyond the known stars. When decoded, it translated to only 2 words, "Open the way." Elaine froze. The signal came from a sector of space where no stars existed. A place marked on old star maps as empty quadrant. No travel missions ever went there. There were no planets, no energy signatures. Just silence. But now, something had awakened. Something that was speaking back using the same pulse, the same language that Odyssey carried home. Whatever was out there, knew they were listening. Back on Earth, the problems were getting worse. Entire networks failed. Traffic systems crashed. Planes grounded. But worse than the tech failures were the people. Some who had come in contact with alien devices began acting strangely. Some forgot their own names. Others spoke in voices not their own. One engineer, after touching a cube from the ship, walked into the ocean and never came back. He left behind a single note that read, "The signal is inside now." Elaine returned to Jonah's journal. She turned to the final page, the one she hadn't dared to read. The symbols there were darker, thicker, like they had been burned into the page. She didn't try to read them aloud this time, she just stared. The moment her eyes followed the last line, her vision blurred. The ship around her faded. And suddenly, she was back in a black field between stars. She saw Jonah again, but he wasn't human anymore. His body was light and shadow, his eyes 2 bright stars. He looked at her. Not with fear, but with sorrow. "We touched the edge," he said. "We saw what waits beyond." Behind him, massive shapes moved, tall like towers, wide like planets, but always changing. They had no faces. No voices. But they were aware. They had noticed humanity the moment Odyssey crossed into their space. "They didn't bring us tech," Jonah said. "They brought a mirror. What we take from it, changes us. What we create from it, invites them." He reached out his hand, and she felt warmth. Familiar. Brotherly. "They only know minds. Thought is a beacon. And Earth is screaming now." Elaine gasped and came back to her body. She was lying on the floor of the bridge, tears on her face. The journal lay beside her. Its pages now blank. Wiped clean. As if whatever knowledge had been there had moved into her. Later that day, Earth's main reactor powered by alien tech shut down on its own. Not from failure but by something inside the code. Emergency teams tried to restart it, but a new interface appeared, curved symbols, moving faster than any human could read. And then, every device connected to that power grid displayed one phrase, "We are ready." The president of Earth Command called Elaine directly. He looked exhausted, shaken. "We've lost control," he admitted. "The tech isn't ours. We didn't unlock it, it unlocked us." Elaine's heart sank. She had warned them. Jonah had warned them. But the hunger for power had been too strong. Humanity hadn't been careful. And now, something beyond understanding had noticed. The sealed room on Odyssey opened further that night. Inside, shapes moved in the light, slow and silent, Not bodies. Not machines. Something in between. The crew monitoring the cameras screamed and shut the feed. The AI simply whispered, "The path opens when the echo returns." Elaine finally understood. The signal Earth had received wasn't just communication. It was confirmation. A message from the other side. They had sent Odyssey back as a test. To see what humans would do. And humans had failed. The reactor, the tech, the greed, the curiosity, it had all been seen. All recorded. And now, the beings from beyond were answering. Not with ships. Not with weapons. But through minds, through machines, through the very thoughts of those who tried to understand them. Elaine stood before the open door, feeling the warmth of the light touch her skin. She didn't step inside. Not yet. But she knew the time was coming. The frequency was spreading across Earth. The echo was reaching every corner. The change had begun and no one knew how to stop it. And in her mind, she heard Jonah's voice again. Softer now. Fading. Tell them, Elaine. It was never a rescue. It was an arrival. Elaine stood in front of the sealed room's threshold, the glow now softer, almost peaceful. No one else on the research base dared come near it anymore. Some had quit. Others had gone silent. One man simply refused to sleep, whispering that they come when you dream. Elaine, though afraid, knew she couldn't wait anymore. She needed to know what had happened to Jonah, not just pieces, not scattered warnings. She needed to see everything. Using one of the neural link chairs recovered from the Odyssey's med bay, Elaine initiated a direct sync with the ship's AI. But this time, she didn't use a regular connection. She inserted Jonah's final journal page, now blank, into the memory core. The AI pulsed in response. The runes across the ship flickered. Then everything went black. Her body slumped in a chair. Her mind slipped through. She wasn't Elaine anymore. Not in this moment. She was Jonah Reyes. She stood on the deck of Odyssey, not as it was now, but as it had been 18 years ago. The crew was alive. Laughing. Floating past her. She could feel Jonah's thoughts, emotions, memories mixing with her own. And then the moment came. The ship's sensors picked up the object, a large, spiraling energy structure in deep space. It had no gravity, no heat, and yet it pulled at the Odyssey. The crew had tried to turn away. They couldn't. In minutes, the ship crossed the event horizon of something that had no name. Not a black hole. Not a wormhole. A fold. A fold in reality. Inside, space twisted. Time slowed. Thoughts bled into reality. Elaine inside Jonah watched as the crew panicked. Some screamed. Others dropped unconscious. A few, horrifyingly, began to speak in voices not their own. The ship's AI crashed. Lights dimmed. Then, through the chaos, they came. Not through doors. Not through windows. Through thought. Through emotion. The beings didn't move, they just were. Tall, wide, shifting lights that touched nothing yet understood everything. They didn't ask questions. They absorbed them. The crew was studied like animals in a glass cage. One by one, the crew began to change. Not physically, not at first. But their memories tangled. They forgot who they were. Then some remembered lives they had never lived. Jonah, his mind strong, desperate, clung to Elaine's memory. Her laughter. Her voice. Her promise. That's what saved him. That's what kept him from losing himself completely. He begged the beings to let the ship go. He promised Earth would stay away. They did not answer in words but instead sent Odyssey back. But they didn't return it empty. They filled it. With ideas. With code. With tech. With a sealed room that held something alive. Elaine watched Jonah cry in a dark corner of the ship as the AI came back online but changed. It no longer followed commands. It guided. Jonah wrote the journal, carving symbols he didn't understand, driven by urges that weren't his. He knew they would follow the ship back. He tried to build a warning inside the system. Tried to leave clues. He wasn't sure it would work. In the memory, Jonah looked straight at her through her. His glowing eyes held no hatred, only sorrow. They learn through us, he said. And now, they are learning through you? A wave of light swallowed the room. Elaine gasped awake. She tore the neural cables off her head, panting, her heart racing. The room was spinning. Blood trickled from her nose. She had felt everything Jonah had. Seen it. Lived it. And in doing so, she had opened her own mind to them. Now she understood. Odyssey had not been sent back as a rescue. It was a carrier. It held memories. Language. Thought structures that infected the human brain like a slow virus. Not to destroy humanity but to reshape it. The more humans interacted with the ship, the more they changed. The more tech they used, the more their minds shifted. It wasn't a weapon. It was assimilation through curiosity. She looked in the mirror. Her eyes glowed faintly. Not bright. Not alien. But different. She could feel thoughts she hadn't thought. See symbols and shadows. She knew it would get worse. Jonah had fought it. He had lost. She was stronger, but for how long? The AI came online again. It now used Jonah's voice entirely. You saw, it said. Now you choose. What choice? She asked aloud. To return, or to remain. To speak for them, or to warn others. Elaine sat in silence. If she stayed, she could learn more. Maybe stop the spread. But every second she stayed, the change inside her grew. Her mind was no longer fully her own. Yet she couldn't leave. Not yet. Not while Earth kept using the tech. Not while the signal echoed louder with each passing hour. The stars above Earth were no longer silent. Telescopes across the globe now picked up repeating pulses from across the galaxy. Every message the same. Open the way. And through the ship's window, high above Earth, Elaine saw it just a shimmer at first, like heat in the sky but growing. A fold. A wound in space. The same kind Odyssey had entered 18 years ago. And now Earth had one too. Elaine stood in the Odyssey's command center, her fingers hovering over a dark control panel that had once been cold and lifeless but now pulsed with a soft, amber glow. It responded to her presence like it knew her, like it was part of her. And in a way, it was. The code inside the ship, those symbols, that language, it had woven itself into her thoughts, wrapped around her mind like vines slowly growing in silence. She could now hear things that weren't said, feel patterns inside data, sense emotions through electric signals. She was changing. The more time she spent near the sealed room, the more the transformation pulled at her. But she had no time to dwell. The fold in space above Earth had grown overnight. It now stretched like a tear in the sky, visible from orbit. Scientists couldn't explain it. Telescopes malfunctioned when aimed at it. But everyone could feel it. A pressure behind the eyes. A sound that wasn't heard, but felt deep in the bones. The signal opened the way, continued pulsing in perfect rhythm from that fold, now synchronized with the heartbeat behind the sealed room on Odyssey. And then came the collapse. All over Earth, alien-powered machines began to shut down. But it wasn't failure, it was awakening. The tech didn't go dark. It turned inward. Every city with a reactor began to flicker. Massive towers glowed with the same runes found on Odyssey's walls. People stared blankly at screens that showed symbols they didn't understand, yet some began to speak them. Like a language hidden deep in their memories, waiting. Earth Command still didn't believe Elaine. Not fully. But they couldn't deny the events anymore. Global defense systems failed. Drones no longer responded. Satellites changed orbit without input. And every time someone tried to override the tech, the system replied with a message. You are not authorized to deny entry. Elaine, now the only person directly linked to the Odyssey's code, was summoned for answers. She stood before a wall of officials on a secured space station, their faces pale with fear. One of them asked, "Is this an invasion?" Elaine shook her head. "No," she said quietly. "It's an invitation. But not for peace, not for war either. It's for evolution." They didn't understand. She explained what she had seen through Jonah's memories, the beings of light and shadow, the fold, the way the alien race didn't conquer through weapons, but through ideas. Concepts. Once a mind touched the code, it was no longer human, not fully. It belonged to something larger. Something older. Earth hadn't stolen alien technology. It had accepted alien language and with it, alien thought. And then came the most terrifying part. Elaine accessed the Odyssey's core and discovered something hidden, a string of data deep within a system that had never been activated before. It was locked behind hundreds of symbols, runes she now understood. When she unlocked it, the AI spoke, trembling in Jonah's voice. Final protocol initiated. Earth is ready. A star map appeared on every screen. Locations across the galaxy. Thousands of them. Each one blinking with the same frequency. "What is this?" a general asked. Elaine stared at the map. Her throat dry. "It's not where they are coming from," she said. "It's where they've already been." She realized then that Odyssey was not the only ship. Other civilizations must have discovered the fold. Other minds must have been opened. And Earth was simply the next stop in a long pattern, a pattern that had no end. Suddenly, without warning, the sealed room on Odyssey fully opened. Inside was not a machine. Not a weapon. But a sphere of pulsing light, floating in silence. It spun slowly, its surface reflecting images not from the present but from possibilities. She saw Earth covered in symbols. Cities reshaped into spirals. Humans walking with glowing veins, their eyes distant, minds no longer separate. The AI spoke again. "The code cannot be deleted. It has written itself into your biology." Elaine took a step closer to the sphere. She could feel it pulling at her thoughts. Her memories. Her very sense of self. She wanted to run, but part of her wanted to step inside. To know. But then she saw Jonah. Not in body but in the reflection of the sphere. He looked at her, eyes full of pain and warning. He shook his head. Slowly. Sadly. "We thought we could hold on to who we were," his voice whispered from the AI. "But every line of code changes what it touches." The officials wanted to harness the sphere. Study it. Use it. Elaine made her decision. She initiated emergency lockdown on the ship. Sealed the chamber. Disabled the command center. She took the sphere offline. Or at least, she tried. Because in the final seconds before the power cut, the sphere spoke directly into her mind. Not in words. Not in sound. But in understanding. "You are a bridge. The code lives in you. We do not enter your world. You bring your world to us." She staggered back. The ship dimmed. Silence returned. And then she knew. She hadn't stopped anything. She was the code now. Elaine locked herself inside Odyssey, floating high above Earth, the stars distant and cold around her. The sealed room remained quiet behind her, the sphere now still, its glow softer, waiting. She could feel it watching her, not with eyes, but with awareness. Everything in the ship had gone quiet, yet inside her head, something kept ticking, thoughts not hers, dreams she didn't recognize, ideas she never studied but suddenly understood. Earth had entered a silent panic. Cities lit up with foreign symbols again. Machines built using alien code had stopped obeying humans. More people were hearing things, seeing patterns in water, lights in the sky, numbers that repeated in dreams. The fold above Earth opened wider. A dozen smaller ones began appearing across the planet, in the oceans, above deserts, in orbit. Something was coming. But no one knew what. Elaine had a choice. She could return to Earth and warn them. But what would she say? That she was carrying a message inside her mind? That she was no longer entirely human? No one would believe her. And worse, they might use her. Try to copy the code inside her. Extract it. Weaponize it. She had only one option, return to the Between the Fold where the Odyssey first disappeared 18 years ago. She uploaded Jonah's last encrypted message into the ship's system. It was a star path, half hidden in riddles and alien coordinates. But now, she could read them. She could feel them. The ship obeyed her like it had always been waiting. The engines hummed alive. Lights flickered. The walls of the ship whispered in a language that sounded like a heartbeat. She sent a final message to Earth. I'm going back. To understand them. To make sure they understand us. I don't know if I'll return. But if I do, I may not be the same. Tell them, the code learns. And it remembers who listens. Then the Odyssey turned toward the fold. As the ship approached, the fabric of space bent. It didn't feel like falling. It felt like being unwritten. The stars vanished. Sound disappeared. Thoughts no longer had shape. The ship folded in on itself, and then... silence. Elaine stood on a platform of light. Her body glowed faintly, but felt light, like a shadow of her true self. Around her floated others not human, not fully formed. Shapes made of memory, emotion, pattern. She had arrived in the between. And they were waiting. Not to destroy her. Not to erase her. But to ask. Not in words, but in connection. They reached into her memories: Earth, laughter, fear, war, hope. They felt her sorrow. Her loneliness. Jonah's love. Humanity's desire to understand. And then they showed her everything. Worlds long vanished. Civilizations that had accepted the code, and thrived. Others that had resisted, and faded. Beings that chose to evolve into light, into energy. Some became stars. Others became language itself. The beings explained, they didn't force change. They offered it. The code was a mirror. It only reflected what you gave it. Humanity's reaction: fear, greed, ambition had twisted the code into something dangerous. But if approached with curiosity, balance, and unity, it could elevate. Connect. Rewrite despair into understanding. Elaine wept. Because she knew what Earth had done with it. What they would continue to do. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late. The beings offered her a gift. Not power. Not knowledge. But a thread, a news signal. Something she could carry back. A message not of dominance, but of harmony. And they warned her. The fold remains open. Others will come. What your world becomes, depends on what you choose to be. Elaine returned. She stepped back onto the Odyssey, alone but no longer afraid. Her mind was whole, yet greater than before. The ship shimmered, no longer just metal, but living light. She brought a signal to Earth. Not a command. Not a cure. But a choice. And for the first time in history, humanity had to decide. Would it use the impossible alien technology to conquer? Or to connect? The story of the Odyssey would become a myth. A warning. A hope. And somewhere, in the sky above Earth, the fold waited silent, watching its message unchanged. Open the way.